Life in the UK Test. Chapter 3, Section 5, Part 3. Disclaimer. This work is independent and non-official. It is a free help based on life in the United Kingdom, a guide for new residents, 3rd edition handbook. December 2015. Chapter 3, Section 5, Part 3. The 20th Century. Winston Churchill, 1874 to 1965. The Second World War. Winston Churchill, 1874 to 1965. Churchill was the son of a politician, and before becoming a Conservative MP in 1900, was a soldier and journalist. In May 1940, he became Prime Minister. He refused to surrender to the Nazis, and was an inspirational leader to the British people in a time of hardship. He lost the general election in 1945, but returned as Prime Minister in 1951. He was an MP until he stood down at the 1964 general election. Following his death in 1965, he was given a state funeral. He remains a much admired figure to this day, and in 2002, was voted the greatest Briton of all time by the public. During the war, he made many famous speeches, including lines which you may still hear: "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat." Churchill's first speech to the House of Commons, after he became Prime Minister, 1940. "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." Speech to the House of Commons, after Dunkirk, 1940. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Speech to the House of Commons, during the Battle of Britain, 1940, as France fell, the British decided to evacuate British and French soldiers from France in a huge naval operation. Many civilian volunteers, in small pleasure and fishing boats from Britain, helped the Navy to rescue more than 300,000 men from the beaches around Dunkirk. Although many lives and a lot of equipment were lost, the evacuation was a success, and meant that Britain was better able to continue the fight against the Germans. The evacuation gave rise to the phrase the Dunkirk spirit. From the end of June 1940, until the German invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, Britain and the Empire stood almost alone against Nazi Germany. Hitler wanted to invade Britain, but before sending in troops, Germany needed to control the air campaign against Britain, but the British resisted, with their fighter planes, and eventually won the crucial aerial battle against the Germans, called the Battle of Britain, in the summer of 1940. The most important planes, used by the Royal Air Force, in the Battle of Britain, were the Spitfire and the Hurricane, which were designed and built in Britain. Despite this crucial victory, the German Air Force was able to continue bombing London and other British cities at night time. This was called the Blitz. Coventry was almost totally destroyed, and a great deal of damage was done in other cities, especially in the East End of London. Despite the destruction, there was a strong national spirit of resistance in the UK. The phrase "the Blitz spirit" is still used today, to describe Britain's pulling together in the face of adversity. At the same time as defending Britain, the British military was fighting the Axis on many other fronts. In Singapore, the Japanese defeated the British, and then occupied Burma, threatening India. The United States entered the war when the Japanese bombed its naval base at Pearl Harbor in December 1941. That same year, Hitler attempted the largest invasion in history, by attacking the Soviet Union. It was a fierce conflict, with huge losses on both sides. German forces were ultimately repelled by the Soviets, and the damage they sustained proved to be a pivotal point in the war. The Allied forces gradually gained the upper hand, winning significant victories in North Africa and Italy. German losses in the Soviet Union, combined with the support of the Americans, meant that the Allies were eventually strong enough to attack Hitler's forces in Western Europe. On the 6th of June 1944, Allied forces landed in Normandy. This event is often referred to as D-Day. Following victory on the beaches of Normandy, the Allied forces pressed on, through France and eventually into Germany. The Allies comprehensively defeated Germany in May 1945. The war against Japan ended in August 1945, when the United States dropped its newly developed atom bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Scientists led by Ernest Rutherford, working at Manchester and then Cambridge University, were the first to split the atom, and took part in the Manhattan Project, in the United States, which developed the atomic bomb. The war was finally over. Study materials. All chapters from the study materials are Crown copyright and have been based on Life in the United Kingdom, a guide for new residents 3rd edition handbook. All photos are borrowed from wikipedia.org under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0 unported. This work is independent and non-official, prepared in December 2015.